Yeah, they're good.
Career Development Workshop event. My name is Charlene Gonzales, and I am the event coordinator slash the marketing specialist of the board team. I would like to thank you all for coming and supporting us. And so we have Kyo here, who's going to present internships and know how to find more career opportunities, different career paths you might be interested in. So, for Kyo.
Normally people don't give me a microphone. We'll see if that was a mistake. And also, hopefully my mouse works. We'll see if that is also a mistake. So my name is Kyo O'Connor. I am the internship program assistant for the College of Liberal Arts. Some of you may have already seen some variation of this presentation if you are a College of Liberal Arts student. At least one person is nodding. A lot of this information is going to be very familiar to you. So what is an internship and why should you do one? Well, an internship is an opportunity for you to practice your professional skills in a professional setting. It's what we call hands-on or experiential learning. So it's a chance for you to take the skills that you're learning in the classroom and take them into an actual workplace setting and test drive how you do. It's also a chance for you to develop soft skills, which you might not be getting the opportunity to develop in a lot of your classes. And those are very valuable to employers. It's also a good chance for you to test out a career or a setting that maybe you want to work professionally in. I know that for a lot of psychology majors in particular, sometimes people aren't sure if they want to do research or if they want to work in a clinical setting. So they'll do a research internship and then they'll do a clinical internship to kind of try to nail that down. And they're not the only ones. Actually, we have a lot of students who come back to a second internship because maybe the first one they realized like, oh, I don't actually want to work in law. Maybe I want to try working for a nonprofit for a little bit. And that's totally valid. Build your confidence, grow some skill sets, like I mentioned before, expand your network because you will be working with professionals, ideally in your field. Those connections are very valuable to you. It's also a good chance for you to add entry-level experience to your resume if you have not had a chance to do that yet. For some careers, this is more valuable than for others. If you do want to work in a clinical setting or a research setting, you will want to have some sort of clinical or research experience on your resume. If you plan to go into like I'm planning to go into project management, they don't care as much in project management if I've done a project management internship as much as they care if I did an internship at all. So who wants to be employed after they graduate? You know, me too. Who wants to make more money? Yeah, I mean, if you don't want to be employed after you graduate, you don't want to make more money, why are you here? So students who complete an internship are 15% less likely to be unemployed a couple of months after graduation. This is largely because they are usually offered jobs by the people that they interned for. So 70% of interns do get offered a full-time position at the company where they did their internship. 80% of those who are offered those positions do accept them. This is what we call the internship to employment pipeline. It's very important. It's really valuable to you and to employers. And the reason why it's valuable is because if you have interned for an employer, they have already invested money in you. They have already invested money in training you. You're already a part of their culture. You know your coworkers already. You know your job responsibilities. They don't want to do all of that investment all over again with somebody else if they don't have to, because that's just costing them double to do the same thing that they just did. So they want to hire you if at all possible. That's also valuable for you because it means that when you do an internship, you have a really good chance of walking away with a full-time job. And as we've established, we all want to be hired after graduation. Students who do internships do on average earn 6% more after graduation per year than those who did not intern. So that is an average of $10,000 more per year. I don't know about you, I could use an extra $10,000 per year, so that is also something to consider. It is an investment in your future bank account. You can practice and learn all kinds of different skills in an internship. These used to have some sort of arbitrary categorization, but I got rid of it because it didn't really matter. I'm not going to read the whole slide to you because I'm sure that all of us can read. If you can't, maybe let me know and I'll read it to you. But a lot of these skills, the main thing that you want to take away from this is that these are all skills that can be practiced at almost any internship. Anywhere you go, you're going to have to learn how to take personal responsibility. You will need to know how to communicate with other people. You will need to be organized. You will need to be responsible for your own time management. They say that nobody's going to hold your hand when you get out there in the real world. That is largely, unfortunately, true. So an internship is a good chance for you to practice these skills in sort of a more low-risk setting, because if you get fired, you weren't getting paid in the first place in most internships. All of these also are applicable to a wide variety of different kinds of careers. So any kind of career that you're going into, you can take the skills that you learn from an internship with you. It's actually one of the best learning experiences that you can possibly have for going into a professional career. I don't know what that banging noise is, but I hope everybody's okay. So where can you do an internship? There are all kinds of different places where you can find internships. Nonprofit organizations are the ones that I primarily work with the most. A lot of nonprofits are severely understaffed, so having an intern allows them to get projects done or research done that they wouldn't otherwise have the manpower to do. But there's also a lot of mental and physical health organizations. Like I mentioned, if you're interested in working in a clinic, you can look at someplace like Calm Clinic. They're usually taking interns. There's also sports organizations. Our program works with the Super Bowl committee, so that's pretty neat. Government and political organizations, lots of law firms. So a lot of law firms will take legal interns. A lot of government and political organizations need interns for things like youth outreach programs, social media interns, people who are willing to get on the phone and call people and talk to them. I know, being on the phone is super scary. I don't like it either. But that is one of the things that you can do in an internship. A lot of media organizations will take on interns for particularly like journalism type fields. If you're interested in doing research, that can be another good avenue for you as well. And really anywhere that you like. So if there's a company that you really, really want to work for, do some research. Go find out who's in charge of hiring or who's in charge of volunteers. Send them an email, say, hi, my name is so-and-so, I'm a student at UNLV, and I want to work for you, and here's what I can bring to the table. In a lot of cases, if they have internship positions, they will find a way to get that information to you, because you contacting them first shows them that you are responsible for your own personal growth and your own growth as a professional, and it shows them that you are a go-getter. Those are the kind of people that they want to hire. So where can you find an internship? If you're a College of Liberal Arts student, you can apply to the College of Liberal Arts internship program. That's the really easy one. If you are not a College of Liberal Arts student, you can go to Career Services, which actually has a new program called the UNLV Micro Internship Program. Not a lot of stuff listed on there right now, but there are opportunities, and most of those are only a couple of hours a week, or they're very short-term projects that you do get paid for. There are also websites that you can check out. Handshake is the big one for UNLV students. If you go on Handshake and you search for internships, you will get more results than you will know what to do with. Please use the search filters and narrow them down. It's really helpful, trust me. LinkedIn and Indeed, likewise, will give you a lot of results for internships, but you do need to be careful with those search filters. If you're only interested in working in jobs in Las Vegas, make sure that you're very clear about your expectations with that particularly. You can also attend the UNLV Career Fair, which is going to be next Wednesday from 9:30 to 2. And so that's going to be in Thomas and Mack. There should be more information about that on the Career Services website. If you search for UNLV Career Fair, I promise it comes up. I know because I checked right before I did this presentation. You can also ask your friends and family for recommendations. If you know somebody who owns a business, or you know somebody who knows somebody who owns a business, this is a good time to reach out and use your network and use those connections to try to find something that you would be interested in doing as well. And as I mentioned before, do your research. So maybe you know that you want to do an internship and you kind of know what you want to do, but you're not really sure where to find an internship to do that particular thing. Look for companies in Las Vegas that are already doing the thing that you want to be doing. Find out who's in charge of their volunteers or who's in charge of their interns. Send them an email and say, hey, I want to work for you. It's a pretty high chance, sorry, that banging is really weird. It's a pretty high chance that they will get back to you if they don't have any positions. Ask them if they know who does. In a lot of cases, companies that don't have internships are more than happy to connect you with somebody else they know who might be able to help. So doing your research can be really beneficial in that regard. So what do you need to apply for an internship? Well, you need to have your resume, first of all. That's probably the most important thing that you need, actually. Make sure that the formatting on your resume is clear and consistent. Make sure that you've checked it for any spelling errors. Don't spell your own email address wrong. I know from personal experience that one can come back to bite you really hard. Also, you can go to Career Services for advice. They will look over your resume. They'll be happy to check it out for you and make sure that everything looks good. You should have some sort of a template for a cover letter. Maybe don't just use one that you found online, but look at a couple of different templates and customize your own to suit your own personal style and your own personality and your own needs. And that should be something that you can change and tailor to any kind of job that you want to apply to. It should tell people who you are and why they should hire you. You don't just want to send a cover letter that's like, my resume is attached. Because that's like, okay, great, I was going to look at that anyway, but like, who are you and why are you interested in working for us? You should also have a good attitude. Ideally, like, don't walk into the job interview like, oh, I guess I'm here to find a job. Nobody's going to hire you. Dress to impress, stand up straight, make eye contact, put your best foot forward. I know people say that a lot, but like, legitimately, if you want to get hired, the best thing that you can do is show up with a good attitude. Learn more. If you are a COLA student, you can visit our website. We actually have two websites. The QR code goes to our Wix website. I would recommend anybody interested in internships goes and checks that one out, because that one actually has student testimonials from students who have done real internships over the last year and a half. And that includes photos of what they did at their internships, discussions of what they learned, all kinds of different information that could be really useful if you're just not really sure what kinds of internships exist. You can also contact Career Services, and I recommend that you do, especially if you need somebody to look at your resume. You can send me an email at kyo.o'connor@unlv.edu. If I don't have the answer to your question, I will pass you on to somebody who does. I know a lot of people who know a lot of things about professional development, so I would be happy to connect you if that is what it takes. And that was a lot of information super fast. So. I have one speed, and it's like fast forward. Charlene, do you want the microphone back, or do you want me to do questions? Or? Sure. Does anybody have any questions on internships? I have preemptively answered every question anybody could possibly have.
Anybody online?
Yes.
Internships would you recommend for a journalism student?
For a journalism student?
Yeah.
Anything that's going to have you connecting to people and practicing those soft skills where you're communicating with other people, which is going to be most internships, I find, because as a journalist, the most important thing that you need to be able to do is convey to other people that you are trustworthy and that they can trust you with their story. So you want to make sure that you're practicing those soft skills and making it easy for them to do that. And really anything that's going to involve research too, I would say. Anything that's going to have you looking into data, digging up old stories or old newspaper articles. We do have a lot of different kinds of internships like that as well. Did that answer your question? Any other questions? Nobody online? All right.
Not yet.
Then I'm turn this off.
Before we officially start, we'll be moving on to the panel portion. So Charlene will be asking 3 main questions, but if any of you, even people online, have questions at any time, don't be afraid to raise your hand at any time. You ready to begin? for 3 years, so that's been. We had stats class together, and so glad she's here today. So you can introduce your name, pronouns, education background, current job position, or anything else. Dr. D, maybe.
Oh, pass it along. All right.
So, as Charlene had mentioned, I'm a doctor. I received my PhD in experimental psychology with a specialization in cognitive science. I'm an experimental psychologist and a cognitive psychologist all at the same time. And I do teach some courses in professional development. So share any information.
As I said, my name is Kyo O'Connor. I'm the program assistant for the College of Liberal Arts internship program. I use mostly they, them pronouns, but genuinely I don't care. I am a graduating senior in psychology. I also have a organizational focus, so I'm interested in management and resources, and hoping to go into project management after I graduate.
Close and have them. But my name is Melikabella Shenouda. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And I'm currently the career professional development student for the College of Liberal Arts. So here at the Career Professional Development Workshop. I'm also a master's degree in higher education, so it's just a fancy term for college life. It's just administrative things, teaching, just everything. And way back when I received my bachelor's in psychology, and also I just want to throw this in there, I did 2 minors, so anthropology and Japanese. So always remember, if you're teeter-tottering, should I add something? You can always add a minor, or even a double major. So first question I want to ask y'all is, what are the most important skills that you'll learn that are applicable to a general career?
For me, what I've noticed is many employers are seeking the communication side. Being able to critically think, something else that they're shooting for, and knowing how to collaborate with teams. And so if you have experiences that can convey those types of soft skills, and some of them could be hard skills, and be able to communicate, present information. Those are strong skills that will.
Yeah, just to kind of pile on that, I think the most important thing I've learned is to talk to people. I went to CSN for my associate's degree, and while I was there, I did not talk to anybody. I showed up to class, I turned in my homework, and then I went home at the end of the day, and I wasn't involved in anything. I didn't make any friends. I didn't have the experiences. And when I graduated, I was like, well, that sure is something that I did, that I spent a lot of money for, that I didn't actually get a lot out of. And so when I came to UNLV, the thing that I promised myself that I would do was to put myself out there and try stuff. And the thing that I learned how to do was how to talk to people, which is why my job is now to go to people's classrooms and talk to them about the internship program. But the connections that I've made through being able just to have a conversation, right? Through just being able to look somebody in the eye and connect with them genuinely and say, this is who I am, here's what I'm trying to accomplish, how can I help you, how can you help me? That's been the most valuable thing that I've learned being able to do so far. And I expect that it's going to be something that's going to be valuable for the rest of my life.
Say the first thing that came to mind when Charlene was but no, really all aspects of communication. It could be written, speaking, really even body language. There's a lot of things that go into this. But to communication, I think something that is applicable to every career is understanding expectations. Not being afraid to ask questions. If something's unclear, and feel like, wait, do you have a moment? Do we have like a 5-minute meeting or maybe an email or something? Just to make sure that you understand what's expected of you. That way, you're set up for success. Thank you. Next question is, what are your top 3 work values? Do any of your work values overlap with
You have to go for three. I think sometimes we don't realize how hard work and can play such a huge role in just getting connected to people and being able to achieve something. As a first generation college student, I really didn't have all of the resources when I started when I was an undergrad, and I had no one to turn to actually. And I realized that I had to do my own research. I had to figure out what's out there. And I had thought that the next step to getting my degree was immediately to graduate school. And now I've come to learn that's one option, but that shouldn't be the only option. And part of the reason why I said hard work is because it does require some effort on your part to look at some of the opportunities that are out there. Unfortunately, oftentimes professors are suggesting graduate school, and it could be something that might be of interest to you, but you can get a degree and earn a lot more just by going straight with a bachelor's degree. So don't assume that, oh, I have to get an advanced degree just so I have a bigger salary. It really is dependent on what field you're in and the career choice that you might choose. So it does require effort and sometimes a little bit of crying, but that's part of being human.
That might be the most relatable thing you've said. Not that I've been crying recently. I just finished my cat, so I'm great. You did one, so I'll do one, and then Melikabella can do one, and then add up to three. I think that my most important work value and personal value and professional value is to try to be as ethical as I can. And being ethical is hard. Sometimes it means that you have to confront the people who are in charge of you and say, hey, we can't do this, and here's why we can't do it. Or it means that you have to own up and say, hey, I made a mistake, and it's going to cause problems for everybody in this room, and we're going to have to work together to fix it. It takes courage to be ethical. It's difficult. But it's really important to me to make sure that no matter where I go, I'm presenting the best possible version of myself. So I think that for me, it doesn't matter if it's like personal or professional, if it's a work value or if it's just who I am as a person. I want to make sure that I'm always trying to be as ethical as possible.
Values, and I think it does intertwine with personal, professional, just everything, is the opportunity for growth. And there's a lot of layers to that, right? Is there growth in my job? Like, can I actually, get promoted or do something else? Or maybe have growth within myself and be like, wow, I was such a different person last semester than I am this semester. That can be through, the people that you've met, the experiences you've had, skills you've acquired. But also, along with that opportunity for growth, I do want to have an opportunity to give resources back to fellow, first gen folks or really anybody in my community. So not only taking, but having the opportunity to give and spread more information as well.
First generation college student. 5 years ago, I came to college as a nursing major, and I always wanted to be a doctor. That's always been my dream when I was a kid. But the soon I stepped my foot on that campus, I realized that being a doctor wasn't for me, and I was having a hard time choosing a major because no one ever told me that changing a major can be difficult. And I always tell my students all the time that two things take time. And you don't have to rush right now. If you don't know what major you're doing right now, it's okay. It's completely okay. Just take your time, explore what the student LB has to offer, and one day or another, you're going to find what you're passionate about.
Just don't take too long. You want to get that degree at some point.
Question. What are the differences between a CV and a resume?
So, the word curriculum vitae actually means an academic course of life. And so when you hear the word resume, it's a French word to mean a summation or it's a summary of your work experience. And so a CV is often more so in an academic setting, whereas a resume is for a job that you choose to pursue outside of academia. But you continue on to expand on it.
Nothing to add.
It's wild because I do a lot of, obviously as the career and professional development programming assistant or graduate assistant, I do the same things. So Latin and French meetings, and it really does help to be like, okay, CV for curriculum vitae is something that does not have a limit. So the more accomplishments you do have in prior, you can always have that be as long as you need it to be. A resume should, in theory, be 1 page. I say in theory because it depends on your program, and Kyo and I and even Dr. G all work in the College of the Arts. So we do have all of our students do submit a 1-page resume because you do want employers, when we do backtrack, employers are said to only look at applications and resumes for like 7 seconds. So if it's stapled and there's multiple pages, they are not going to look at it. It needs to be as brief as possible, but also you need to highlight all of your relevant experiences. So definitely look into your specific department and see if there's something specific, like if you're in career design, or not career design and something more creative, maybe your resume won't look as, you know, I have to preface this, y'all. Every time at this day, my blood sugar tends to really drop. So that's why I have juice with me, and that's why I'm like, my neurons are like, they're just one little Windows logo going throughout my brain right now. So words are hard. But yes, definitely look into your department, and I'll end it at that. So
Just to expand on what I know. So in a curriculum vitae or vitae, so the CV, it often can be pages upon pages because it's basically your academic career all placed into one document. And so sometimes if you ever look at your professor's CV, sometimes they could have like 10 pages, 27 pages, 30 pages. I've seen some that might be 40 pages. Whereas with a resume, the maximum that I would suggest is 2 pages, but really 1 page is the ideal because what many recruiters and employers do is they don't necessarily read through everything word for word. They'll look at the organization of your resume, but they're going to scan for keywords that actually pertain to the position that you're looking for. And another thing is there are these softwares that will actually scan for keywords that relate to the position that they're seeking. And so ideally 1 page is good, and try to put all of the information, when you're summing up, you're summarizing the information about your resume, make sure it's every word counts for something that you know is meaningful to them. And so your goal is to sell yourself based off of this brief summary of your career, of whatever training that you have.
Awesome, thank you. I sometimes don't know the differences between a CV and a resume. I'm a graduated senior. So thank you so much for clarifying that. Next question is, what are the different kinds of resources would you recommend for students who are seeking to build their CV or resume?
Do an internship. We just talked about why. I'm not here to repeat all of it, but do an internship. I guarantee you will learn something that will increase your skills in some way that you can put on your resume or on your CV. Also, if you have the opportunity to go for scholarships or awards or certifications or anything that proves like what you've accomplished over your time at university, do that. Like, at least go for it. You don't know if you're not going to get it. If you don't try, you're not going to get it, right? But if you try, you never know what you can actually accomplish. So try.
internships. Really priming y'all. I would say definitely read your email, and maybe you've read this before, and you're like, okay, well, eye roll happens or something. You don't have to like have a pristine inbox with no emails and you have to read all of them. Definitely just, skim it and be like, oh, this looks important. Or check your spam, and maybe something's going in spam for some reason. And the reason I say this is because even the career services on campus sent out a paid opportunity for 20 students anywhere on campus to be a career fair ambassador. And that's really something amazing. First off, you get paid, you get free food, you get to know what the career fair is, you kind of get the behind the scenes. But also it's an opportunity for you to also mingle with people at the career fair. And I don't think a lot of students even knew that opportunity existed because they did not read their emails. So there's all types of different opportunities. They could be paid, unpaid, maybe it's a mentor program, maybe it's an internship. Just definitely scour your email.
Just out of curiosity, how many of you guys have actually gone to the Career Service Center on campus? So,
Do any of you know where it is?
and they just moved.
Yeah.
New locations on our website.
Yeah, I should have checked. But it's also another thing that you might want to consider is Handshake. That is part of that website. If you go to the Career Services website, there are a bunch of postings. And some of these job posts are coming from alumni from UNLV. So you never know who you might be connected to, but take advantage of that and try to do it as early as possible, because one of the best ways is to expose yourself to what you should expect. And so it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to start applying, but you do need some exposure because you never know what you're going to get. And it becomes a full-time job just to be searching for either internships or an actual job. And it's almost like pursuing grad school as well. So you'll have to figure out what program fits for me. But part of, from having conversations with my students, oftentimes they would tell me, I didn't know I had to look ahead. And they're realizing that they should have done that ahead of time, because sometimes there are requirements that they might not have known that would make you more competitive and marketable. And so just check it out.
So speaking of resources that you've already paid for as part of your tuition, which means effectively like they're free, but you've already paid for them. If you go to Canvas and you go all the way down in the menu, there's a button that says Student Resources. And under that Student Resources tab, there's a whole bunch of different kinds of professional development and personal development courses that are asynchronous. They don't cost you anything extra because you've already paid for them. You can do them at your own pace, in your own time, but they will give you certifications for your LinkedIn. You want those certifications. That shows employers that you're the kind of person who goes above and beyond to make sure that you're always improving yourself. So please take a look at those. Please take the opportunity to practice those skills, and they can also give you a really good idea of what kinds of skills employers are looking for as well.
Another thing too. How many of you guys actually go to office hours with your professors? Because take advantage of that. It doesn't always have to be to discuss the subject that you're in for that course. Sometimes just asking questions about how did you navigate your way to getting the job that you got, and do you have other experiences that led you towards other positions that might be within the field, because they might be more knowledgeable in the field that you are interested in. And so I often, when my doors open, it's rarely, hey, can we discuss the chapter that you lectured on? And it's more of, hey, what's my first step that I have to start with to apply for a job? And so you never know if your professors, I'm not saying that all professors will know what to say, but at least try to see if you can connect with them. Because I think part of, earlier on we mentioned about communicating and building a relationship, and part of that is just practicing it through what you're doing now on campus. And so take advantage of office hours, because they're not all intended for just focusing on the work that you do in class. Obviously, you should take advantage of office hours if that's the case, but you never know what insights could be offered just by chatting with your professors. It's a great way to communicate with them, especially people don't realize this, but I'm an introvert by nature. and I had to get outside of my comfort zone. And the best way I did this was just asking them when I was at the undergrad, how did you get started with knowing what you wanted to do? And that will lead to more conversations. So just some.
So it's useful to go to your professor's office hours, because at some point you might want a letter of recommendation, and if they don't know who you are, they will give you one.
Right? And you don't want to just pop in and be like, hey, you remember me in the lecture, like 100 students you have? And you're like, no. So forge a relationship that is true and genuine over time, instead of being like, okay, I got 2 weeks, I gotta go, into their office hours 3 times before I ask or something. Give yourself time. Actually get to know your professors and real people. But yeah, something I wanted to say earlier is career services. Does anybody know where it is? I know this. You do. Well, it's their new location. It's across the street. So if anybody is familiar with Crumble Cookies, Roberto's Tacos, like that whole building right there, even through T, it's that building. So you need to go up to the 2nd floor. It's a lot of, it feels like a maze, but it's really cool. Check that. And I think there's some questions later on that I can talk more about LinkedIn, so I'll just save that, but it didn't matter.
Thank you all. Does anybody have any questions so far?
Not a question, but a quick comment. For those who don't know, the Writing Center, you can also ask the Writing Center to help you out with your CV or your resume. It doesn't just have to be about essays as well. And you can also have them help you with your cover letters if you are considering grad school, as well, just to help you out and get like the base of it. With career services, as well as Melikabella stated, they are relocated at the UNLV Gateway Building Suite 200. They do a lot of workshops throughout the semester as well. So this is just one workshop that you guys attended, and you feel like you need more guidance, or you feel like you need specifically what is a resume, how do I set up a LinkedIn, what do I specifically need to do for interviews. Like career services has workshops specifically for that you can definitely attend to. You can also follow them via social media. I think it's at UNLV Career Services as well. But yeah, that's what I want to say.
Thank you, Dayton. Anybody in the online?
No, not yet.
What are some challenges you faced during your undergraduate career?
How much remembering they're
I
like,
know. I think back 15 or so years. Get back to me on that.
That's what you because I'm in it.
you're like, what are the challenges? Everything. No.
Not crying.
So for context, I graduated my undergraduate in 2021. So that was, still the weird like lockdown, not lockdown situation. So I feel like I didn't even process that I graduated. I'm just kind of thrown into graduate school, just like Dr. Gunawan was saying, maybe you don't need to go straight into it. But yeah, some of the challenges, I know that a lot of us here are first gen. So being first generation, of course, brings its own challenges. There's a language barrier. My parents didn't really understand the need for college either. So just a lot of familial barriers. Also, transportation was an issue, trying to commute to campus. And really something that was hard for me was financial wise. So I think like these big 3 are something that a lot of students do have to deal with every single day. But something that I guess could make me a little more unique in the way that, this is my own challenge that I have to figure out how to, get through, was like I kind of briefly mentioned earlier, I do have type 1 diabetes among some other illnesses. So trying to figure out how to go to my day-to-day classes or do my work, or really just like throwing in all the other things that I mentioned, makes it a little tough. But it also does provide me with a perspective that I'm like, hey, maybe I don't know what that person is going through. Maybe I don't have to ask, I don't have to pry, but just give them grace. So it has, changed my perspective a little bit.
If you thought of one, you can go out.
For me, as an undergrad, I thought that, again, I'm also a first generation college born. should call it. One thing that I didn't realize was that your academic life is just one identity of you. And when I was a student, I thought, well, this is the career choice that I'm going to pursue, and I was so narrow-minded in a sense because all I focused on is career, career, career. Just be aware that there's different identities of you. You're a family member, you're a friend, you're all these things, and if we neglect those other things, you're going to have such an imbalance, and you might regret it in the future. And I know that was something that I struggled to realize. It wasn't until I was in grad school that I really have been too focused that I didn't realize that I wasn't looking at all of these other parts of me. And when someone had asked me, so who are you? And all I could think was, I'm a student. And that's scary because that means I haven't really lived life. And so you make sure you guys are seeing a balance of not just being a humanities student, you're actually taking part in other things that are socially healthy. Because it's really unhealthy just to focus on the degree, and that's all. And also realizing that your degree can be used in different ways. I often tell students that a degree is just a degree. It's what you do with a degree that really matters. And so be flexible to change. And so when I was a psychology teacher, I thought, oh, this is all I could do in psychology. Well, now that I teach a career and professional development course in the psychology department, I realized, man, I wish someone had told me that, oh, if you actually explored the different keywords or worked backwards, looking at job posts and see how it's relevant to the field that you're in, that perhaps you could have opened up to opportunities within a bachelor's degree and not have to go to grad school and accumulate debt. and so that was, I think, the struggle that I had. And obviously, if I had more resources to
So speaking of health, because I know that both of my compatriots have mentioned it, I am my own biggest problem. I am my own biggest challenge because I want to do everything all the time and I have to do it perfectly or it's not done. And so the thing that I've had to learn the most, or the things I've been doing most are time management, stress management, and just learning that enough is enough. Like it's okay to say that this is good enough and it doesn't have to be perfect and to turn it in the way that it is and to move on to the next thing. If you keep trying to make something perfect forever, you're never going to be satisfied. And that's been the biggest challenge that I've had to face is because I want everything to be perfect. I want people to know that I'm capable of so much more than what they think I am. And I'm sure that a lot of you can relate to that. But please do not crush your own soul in university. Like, please take your time, learn when enough is enough, give yourself some grace, and let it go. It's okay to not be perfect. You're allowed. Your mental health is more important than your degree. So please keep that in mind.
So much for sharing. Something that I want to add to your thought is, Brene Brown always says, have a it's okay to struggle. It's okay if you're having a bad day. Just don't give up. And some days we have good days and some days we have bad days. But the most important thing is that next question is, do you have any tips or advice for how to
Start all the way at the end.
So, kind of a pop quiz. We're all doing a group interview right now. Our first question. No, surprise. So, as Kyo was mentioning LinkedIn before, I know that they jumped into candidates and student resources and all of that. But by show of hands, and maybe folks online can just type in the chat if they want to. How many of you know what LinkedIn is? I'm not going to ask you to define it, but okay. Vast majority of us, at least from what I can see. So for those that maybe don't know, it's basically a professional social media, right? And it can be used for networking and really there's job posts on there as well. It's just really what you make of it. But not to go too much into LinkedIn, I do want to say something that the university pays for, right? You pay for in your tuition, is LinkedIn Learning. So create a LinkedIn account if you don't have one already. It does not need to be perfect. Just create one through your Rebel Mail. And then it'll take you to LinkedIn Learning, which is sort of a masterclass. It has experts in their own field telling you how to, perfect something that you're looking up. So it has a search bar, it's just like YouTube, but they're professionals. And a lot of the time, they do have activities or quizzes or tasks, and you can, as Kyo was saying, get certifications that you can post on your LinkedIn profile. So if you're interested in learning how to, do the best you can in your interview, you can just type in interview tips or maybe, like mock interview tips or something, and really just gauge the field. A lot of times, like, as well, there are different types of things that you should do for your specific degree. Maybe like something on engineering major versus somebody who's in psychology. So just trying to gauge what's expected of you as well.
This is going to sound like really, really simple, but genuinely it does make a huge impact. Make eye contact with the person who's interviewing you. You want them to see you. You want them to connect with you and to remember who you are as a person. If you are not looking at them, they will know that you don't really care and you don't really want to be there. So please look at the person who is interviewing you and genuinely try to find some way to connect with them. Also, send them a thank you note or a thank you email afterwards because it's the polite thing to do and it leaves a good impact.
So something that I see students do is they practice for what questions are being asked of them. You guys have to also come up with questions to ask the employer. And so whenever they, at the end of the interview, they'll ask, do you have any questions? Never say no, because it shows a disinterest in that position. And so some things to think about is how can you connect yourself to the mission of that company and figure out a way to have conversations about, oh, so what kind of projects are you guys currently doing, or what are you collaborating on, and what are the most challenging components of being in that company or that organization? Come up with ideas beyond it just, I'm good, because you're actually doing a big disservice for yourself. So when you're prepping for an interview, don't just prep about things like, oh, where do I see myself in 5 years? And what qualities would allow me to be strong in this position? Also think about what can I ask in terms of questions for the employers as well.
And just to build on that, the place where you find these questions is by looking at their website, or their LinkedIn, or their Facebook page, or whatever they've got for social media. Because everybody's got so much social media. Companies have TikToks now. Organizations are not people, but social media is the best way for you to find out more about these organizations. So go there, look for something that they've done recently, a project, some statistics they put out, some kind of mission statement, if they do any philanthropy, and then develop questions around those things, because it shows that you did your research, that you do care.
Just out of curiosity, you mentioned about learning. The certificates are free,
Yes.
right?
Yes. We paid for the platform. We paid for the platform right through our tuition. So as long as you're a student, I don't know what happens after if you're not a student anymore. But currently enrolled students do have access to this, so definitely make use of it. And it's not only professional development things. If you really want to learn how to better use Canva, they have that as well. There's a lot of creative aspects, maybe even editing YouTube videos or doing stuff like that. So it does not have to be like only doing an elevator pitch or an interview or professional development based things. So something I did want to say, and I completely blanked.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. Expect the unexpected. I know it sounds a little cheesy, right? But something that I have witnessed, and also I've been on the other side, I've been the interviewer, is to kind of stump, not on purpose, but to stump the interviewees in a way that, of course, they're prepping, right? They're expecting, just like Dr. P was saying, have questions for them as well. Don't get so caught up in the questions that you think they're going to ask you. But something that you should do is expect them to ask you something weird. So by weird, I mean, sometimes they're like, oh, what was your favorite song, your freshman year? Or if you can compare your work ethic to a type of fruit, what fruit would you be eating why? And then that's actually happened. And you're like, wait. And then you're like, I'm gonna need a minute. So think of some random things, right? And of course, more often than not, they might not be asked, but it's okay. I'd rather be over-prepared than under-prepared. And also they kind of want to see how you work under pressure and think outside the box.
Like my favorite question is, if you were an animal, what would you be and why? It's like, oh no, I can be all types of animals. It's like just be creative and somehow it reveal more of your personality through those questions as well, if it's possible.
Actually, I have a quick question. So for the different types of majors here, I want to take a quick minute to recognize everyone's majors. Nor, do you want to start?
Hello, major's philosophy with a concentration in law justice.
What's your major?
Journalism.
What's your major?
Hospitality.
What's your major? Biology. What's your major?
Economics.
What's your major?
Kinesiology.
What's your major? Business.
Computer science.
Okay, so we have a lot of different types of majors here. So my question for you panelists is that you see a lot of different majors. So there are people who struggle with a certain major. They're like, I have this major, but I don't know what internship is the best for me. Like, how could this internship work for me? Or what career is best for me? So what is like the different types of advice that you would give for someone who's looking for an internship or a career based on their specific major, or even if it's not related to their major?
So one of the things that I make some of my students do is I would make them think of companies that they know of. So things that you wouldn't have thought about. So for instance, I sometimes will take students to a website like PlayStation or Microsoft. And oftentimes when you see on these websites, it's a product. But if you scroll all the way down, they will have oftentimes a link that says career. And often if you click on that, they often provide not just career positions, but internship opportunities. And so don't think that, oh, well, I don't know how this might connect to how video games connect to my field. You'd be surprised of what you are capable of finding. Because here's another thing, many companies like to come up with their own title for a job position. So the problem is we often think of our own major, and when we think of our major, we think of the stereotypical positions that are available for that field. You gotta think outside the box. And so one other way to do it is actually look at a bunch of job postings and look at the different titles that are there. And then work backwards. So what I mean by that is if there's a title, a position, a title that you're like, I can see myself doing this, click on it and look through it and see if it actually is something that is relevant to you. Also, don't be, sometimes students are too strict with themselves. What I mean by that is you'll look at a bunch of responsibilities and duties and you're like, well, I've only got some of these things, but not all of them. You don't have to be perfect, as Kyo had mentioned. As long as the components of those responsibilities are things that you can see yourself doing because you had some sort of training, then be open to it. And take the risk of applying to it, because you won't be able to satisfy every single thing that they're expecting of you. And the problem that I've seen with students is they just give up easily because all of a sudden they saw two things that they're like, well, I don't have that software training. Well, is there an opportunity for you to gain that training? And if so, also think about, is it consistent across many companies? Because we often like to think of the ideal position, and it's typically the stereotypical positions for whatever major you're in. So you really have to think outside the box, and then also be broader with your keywords that you're using. So if you're you're a journalist major, don't just search for anything that's a journalist kind of position. Look outside the box with like communication and also if you're thinking of not going into like grad school, type in entry level because oftentimes students neglect that, and if you really don't have that much experience, it's fine. You gotta start somewhere, right? And so if you're going into computer science, maybe it's an internship that you're interested in looking at. Maybe put entry level internship, and then you'll be surprised with how many opportunities are out there. It's just we tend to type in the more common words for our own field that we don't realize that there are areas that can connect you to a company that you wouldn't have thought. Like for instance, some of my students didn't realize, oh, I didn't know I could be a research analyst for Disney. You would never have thought of that, right? You have to like explore these different titles that are given in any of these companies, just as a word of advice.
I would say just be aware that your degree is more applicable than you know to more jobs than you can think of. Like most companies just care that you have a bachelor's degree. They do not care what your bachelor's degree is in. If you're an engineering major, that might be different for you. If you're going into engineering, you will have to have an engineering degree because that's what they want. But for most majors, I would say go to the page, right? There's a page on UNLV's website about your major, and it's going to list all of the skills that they want you to have developed by the time that you've graduated. Look at those skills, right? And then type those skills in as keywords and just see what jobs come up. Many of them may not look like they're related to your major at first glance, but that doesn't mean that you don't have the skills to do those jobs or those internships. So that could be a really great way of finding those keywords in the first place. That's kind of how I ended up going from psychology to project management, which is not an intuitive leap for most people, but it was for me because I saw problem solving and I was like, hey, I'm good at that. Let me find a job where like that's the thing that I'm going to be doing. And that's how I landed on project management.
Yeah, a lot of the time you don't even know, like there's overlap between the skills that you want to acquire that you already have. Because there's just like Dr. G and Kyo are saying, there's titles that maybe you never even thought of. And by the end of this panel, I'm gonna feel like I work at career services or something. But next week is actually the career fair, and this is campus-wide. Every single major is invited. Even it's open to the community as well. So it's all day Wednesday. So even if you have classes and things, just pop in. It's definitely worth it. It's low risk. I know it seems scary because there's so many people in the Thomas and Mack. So it's from 9 to 2 all day on Wednesday. But just pop in. There's going to be somewhere upwards of like, I don't know, I'm making up this number, but it's around ballpark 150 employers. So they all have booths. How many of you have gone to the involvement fair on campus? Like I've seen the clouds. Okay. Very similar, it's just like a giant scale. So actual employers will be there. Oftentimes you might see students who are getting ready to graduate in a full suit and tie or like really dressed up because they're doing on-the-spot interviews and like, I am going to get a job at XYZ at the career fair. And that does happen. But a lot of the time it is a low stakes environment. You can just walk around and get freebies. Last year I went and then Trader Joe's was there randomly giving out free snacks and cute little like tote bags. So just go, if not for trying to figure out what employers are looking for with your major, definitely just go for the freebies. I mean, it's worth it.
Yeah, relevant to the career fair, I walked in last spring not intending to talk to any employers, but just intending to kind of like get the lay of the land. And I walked out with 3 job offers. So you can actually get a job at the career fair. I ended up working for the Girl Scouts over the summer. It was awesome. I did.
Another thing is I would highly recommend having like a resume with you, but sometimes I've got this question being asked to me, like, what do I do? I've been a full-time student this entire time, and I'm first generation. I have no clue. I have no assistance in anything. When you're creating your resume, think of the position that's ideal for you, that you are seeking out, and then include in your resume classes that you've taken, that you've been trained to do, because that will actually provide more insights of who you are. Because oftentimes people think, oh, a resume it's just descriptions of a work position that you're in. Well, some students don't have that ability. Well, create something that's what we call a functional resume, where you provide key ideas like management skills and actually describe how you had those management skills. If you are interested in writing, well, what are some of the writing skills that you can convey to an employer that you have these skills, even though you might just be a full-time student? Because oftentimes students think, oh, well, I guess I won't be able to get any job. Well, you gotta be a little bit more creative in how you create your resume. And it doesn't always have to be that you got work experience. By you just earning a degree, that makes you marketable. But don't just disregard the fair because you're like, well, I have no job work experience. I've done nothing. I've been in parts of these organizations where I'm just attending meetings. That's fine. You can incorporate that, but think about all of the schoolwork that you've done and in the classes that you've taken. So, for instance, if in psychology, I know it's a little biased because we keep talking about psychology, but if it's a research methods course, how have you applied some of the skills that might be necessary for that position? Or if you've taken statistics, maybe you could do some stats consulting if you have some strong background in it, or if you've taken any sort of field that you know you've done a lot of projects on, keep that in mind. And also keep in mind, set up a portfolio of things like things that you've done as a group project, because that will come into play later on, and more employers, I think, are seeking more evidence of your skill set. And so having like some sort of a portfolio will help, just to help elaborate on you've been a part of a team project, or you've been able to do some sort of management types of things. And so just to give you some insights of how employers are thinking. Mm-hmm.
Something that came in my mind, how many of you are hospitality majors in business? Did you know you can work for Disney?
Yeah.
Disney college programs are offering a lot of internship for business majors.
And is it paid?
It's paid. Also for people who are engineering majors, data analysis, computer science majors. I found this opportunity just on Handshake the other day, and I thought it was just an interesting thought that I have. So take advantage of Handshake. So you may never know what you can find there. We're gonna take a little quick break by asking y'all some random question. If you had a free plane ticket to anywhere in the world, where would you go?
Me?
I actually have an answer for this question, shockingly, because usually when it comes to fun questions, I'm like, hold on, I don't know. But I would go to Versailles. I've always wanted to see the palace at Versailles and to go and like walk through the gardens there and see the beautiful architecture. And it feels like it's a very like distant dream right now because I'm a broke college student and I can't afford to go anywhere. But like, I'm really hoping that someday I can get a job that like lets me afford to save some money so that I can go to Versailles.
And our winner is Kyo. Like bring in all the free stuff.
I think the traditional response is I'm going to Disneyland, but
Whenever somebody asks some sort of question that's along these lines, I'm always like, oh, take me anywhere, I'll travel wherever, because here's a little context. I grew up in Vegas, and I've only been on the West Coast, so like really California, Arizona, a little bit of Utah. Haven't even explored the US, so take me international, I'll go wherever. But for a more detailed answer, I could say Japan. If y'all heard my intro, I did minor in Japanese, and I have a lot of friends who did study abroad in Japan. So cool, literally anywhere in there, and it is cherry blossom season right now. But also, fun fact, actually sad fact, I competed in a Japanese speech contest. It was full Japanese. I won first place, and this was March 2020. And the first place winner, part of their winnings was a free plane ticket to Japan. So we all remember that time, that spring break that we never came back from. So yeah, that did not happen, but I actually did get a free ticket and didn't get to go yet. So don't say yet.
You get a free face mask. For me, I would like to go to both countries. And Singapore is another one. Costa Rica. Oh, there's so many places. I'll just go everywhere. And so I like adventure. And so, yeah, it's hard to choose.
I just want to add a quick comment for those who are interested in studying abroad. You don't have to just take the classes. You can also do internships over there and see what it lies for the career that you're interested. So if any of you are interested of like going out of the country, you can also do an internship. But also to like give like a little brain break as well. Does anyone also want to answer this question? If you had a free plane ticket anywhere in the world, where do you want to go?
You know, make a joke because my name's Noah. I'm like, let's go to Norway. So I can live in Norway.
For the person that said Disney, which Disney? Because there's like 5 million.
Exactly. Just anything Disney. Every Disney. All of them.
This is the kind of question that you might be like randomly surprised asked in an interview. So if you're thinking right now that you're like too shy and too scared to answer this question, maybe like dig down deep, find your courage. You know, like we don't bite and we're not gonna hire you no matter what you say. Because we're not offering any jobs, not because you're not hireable.
That's why I'm not answering. These questions are random, oftentimes.
Yeah. I'm trying to think what's the most random question I've been asked in a job interview. And I think it was like, if you could pick one food that you had to eat for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Steak.
Steak is a contender, but I have to say chicken wings because I'm from Buffalo. And they'll disown me if I know. So.
One question that I was actually asked in the interview was, what kind of ice cream flavor would you be and why? Hero ice cream because it's sweet but also rocky.
For me, the question that I was asked one time is like, if you could pick anything in this room, how would you tie it into leadership and teamwork? And I remember there was a whole like moose, like just the head. And I'm like, you know, they travel in packs, we gotta work together, we stick together and stuff like that. That was like, that's what I came up with like last minute was the first thing I saw too. It was just like, you don't know what kind of questions they could throw at you, to be honest.
It's fun. It's like improv.
No, literally.
Yeah, I remember one of the questions I was asked is water wet? And I was like,
Philosophical. You got like an existential crisis. Is it?
next question. How do you manage miscommunication/conflict in a working study environment?
Melikabella's my boss, so I'm just gonna make her answer it.
Sure, please. I don't know. I'm in conflict right now. No, I'm just kidding. It depends on the type of conflict, obviously. So everything is contextual. Depends who the conflict is with. If it is with, you know, maybe somebody that is working alongside you in a team, that's different than somebody who is your team. And you're like, oh my goodness, how do I approach this in field? So first step is defining like what it is, what's going on, who is it with, and then something that always works for me, and maybe it's just because that's the type of person that I am, is, like I said, communication. So trying to meet that person in the middle, face to face. I have to be like, okay, is there a convenient time for you? I really wanted to clear up something that, you know, I thought, and maybe just like meet in the middle. the more you get to know where that person is coming from, and then you get a chance for you to also provide your perspective. Oftentimes they're like, oh, okay, it was just misunderstanding, I read something wrong in the slide, so I thought you were modeling or whatever it is. So just having an opportunity to communicate with that person, make sure that it's not like a heated communication, but like, you came at me because of this. Be very level-headed. So if you need to, try to consult in somebody who is a professional, who's like community-based right now. But again, it really depends on the level of miscommunication and conflict that you're experiencing.
So my mentor once told me when I was in the middle of having an issue with a coworker, the problem is the problem. And that really stuck with me because what he meant was that my coworker was not the problem and I was not the problem was the problem. And that was the thing to talk about. So that enabled me to put it into perspective and say, okay, it's going to be me and my coworker working together to solve the problem. It's not me battling my coworker over the problem. We're on the same side and we need to work together. So it's in my best interest to approach this person with an open mind and an open heart and say, okay, here's where the issue is. What do we need to do to fix this? And the other thing that I've had to learn sometimes the hard way is you can't take things personally. Sometimes somebody might snap at you. Your boss might yell at you. Somebody says something in a tone of voice that hurts your feelings, or somebody uses a poor choice of words. It's usually not about you. It's almost always, in fact, not about you. It usually has nothing to do with you. So it's in your best interest to kind of just let it slide. If it's a serious issue, go to that person later and say, hey, in private, like don't do this in front of like a whole group of your coworkers because they will not appreciate it and it will not change anything. But go to them later in private and say, hey, earlier when you said this, this is how that made me feel. And I was just wondering, can we clarify that? What did you mean when you said that? Chances are that they probably didn't mean to hurt your feelings or they didn't mean to come off sounding harsh. And it was just sort of like something that happened off the top of their head because of how they were feeling. And so it's very important to kind of give yourself a chance to be open with other people, not take things personally, and remember that like you wouldn't want them to take things that you said personally, so treat them the way that you would want to be treated in that situation as well.
And this is actually a question that's sometimes asked in an interview, by the way. How would you handle a conflict or a miscommunication? One of the things that I've had, well, in an interview, if you ever have this question asked, describe a situation that you can think of. So, for instance, for me, I often have some miscommunication with my students where it's not because they didn't want to show up to class, but there were situations, life circumstances that happened to occur that inhibited them from actually coming to class. And sometimes it's easy to be quick to judge without knowing all of the answers of why that individual was not attending class or whatever it is. So oftentimes we need to be more solution focused, and part of that being solution focused is actually asking, so what's happening, instead of just being quick to make these assumptions, because we like to infer, oh, you're acting this way because of something that's internal, when in actuality it's an external situation.
two sections to prepare for the fair. The one that is happening tomorrow is a resume review. So if you are not sure that your resume is like ready to go for the career fair, you should definitely come to that. It's also really a chance to ask any questions that you might have about the career fair. But for the career fair itself, it does not have to be stressful. If you are looking for a job at the career fair, dress nice, bring a couple of copies of your resume, be prepared to talk to people, don't be afraid to shake somebody's hand and like give them your elevator pitch if you have one, but you don't have to be terrified. The thing that I told a lot of my mentees last semester about going to the career fair was that if you walk into the career fair and you walk out with a job, great. If you walk into the career fair and you walk out and you don't have a job, you're in exactly the same place you were in when you walked in. So you haven't lost anything, and you've gained some valuable experience from just talking to people and learning how to make the approach.
Well said. I feel like I need to be taking notes to how to so I do have these flyers. It has prepare for the fair on one side and then the career fair on the other side. I'll leave them to the NGC team. But yes, in addition to what Kyo already said, there's the resume review portion, and then there's the employer panel and mixer on Thursday. So I would say show up again. If for nothing, there's freebies, free food. The Thursday's event is like full catered. There's like actual food there. But for showing up and putting the best foot forward, something that I do want to say, it's a resource that not a lot of students are aware of. So is everybody familiar with what EH is? So a business school? Yes. For those that aren't, you can just, it's right next to the student union. So you can just look it up if you need it. But the second floor of the business school does have the Troche Center. It's named after somebody who's like really innocent and has money. So the name's on there. But they have a Troche Center community closet. And it's just like what it sounds. It has a lot of professional development clothes. It's a free closet. You do not need to check out with anybody or like check in. You just walk in and find something that you're interested in. You can even get something for a friend. And they do not tally it. So you don't have to bring it back. You're not obligated to like take care of this item and reload it. It is yours if you need it. There's all types, and people do donate, and if you ever do want to, you can do that if you did too. But there's suits, ties, dresses, blouses, pants, shoes, literally everything. And then also they have accessories in there too. So if you really want to have like a fancy looking, but also professional looking necklace or something, they have that as well. So if this is going to be your very first career fair or something, and you do want to put your best foot forward, you should really check out the Troche Community Center. Its second floor has huge letters, and then you'll find it like a weird little back room, but it's okay. I feel like in BEH, it's always like a weird, it's a weird building.
Somehow every room in BEH is a weird bathroom. The Troche Center also does monthly headshots. So then those are for free. They are professional headshots. They're taken by a professional photographer. So if you do need a headshot for anything, like a passport or just to have one because you need one for your portfolio, that's the best way to go.
Just something that I forward back and question about the career fair. Make sure that you come across as being professional. I know when you're in a crowd, you might think that people aren't looking at you. You're being watched, and so you are being observed, and so try to smile, but have a genuine smile, because oftentimes I see students, they start smiling and then it just starts to fade, and it's like, and they smile again, it just makes me look very disingenuous, and so make sure, like, keep practicing with your smile, but employers can make a quick impression of you immediately and in several milliseconds. And so how you convey yourself can potentially affect how they might see you. I know it's I'm not being judged, but how people see you can happen immediately. And so just keep that in mind if you do intend to go into that career, just walking around, just look your best.
Yeah, think of how much less trustworthy we all look if we were all sitting here like this. Right? Like, you don't want to listen to me, and I clearly don't want to be here in this position. Stand up straight, put your shoulders back, lift your chin up. If you can't muster a genuine smile, at least look neutrally pleasant.
albeit.
That's my problem. Everywhere I go, people think I'm angry. I'm not mad. I promise my face is just stuck this way.
We want to thank our amazing panelists again for being here, able to share their experiences and resources that they gained. So we'll give them another hand. Say hi, hello, and get to know our panelists and eat crumble cookies. Thank you so much for coming.
Also, shout out to Charlene because it's moderated.
Charlene, put being an amazing moderator on your resume.